Greetings, party people, and welcome to the Sabrina Scott podcast. I was going to say the Sabrina Scott show. I don't know what this is. I guess it's a podcast. It's a podcast that is a show. Anyway, what is up, my friends? Thank you for being here with me. I hope your new year is off to an awesome start. I hope you enjoyed the first episode of the year that came out a few days ago. I re-listened to it before scheduling it, and it is really fucking good. So if you haven't listened to it, definitely go and do that. And today I'm also not talking about the new year, and I'm not talking about why I renamed my podcast, and I'm not talking about the vibe of my business for 2024. I'm talking about a completely different and unrelated topic, and I'm probably going to end up talking about this in 2 different episodes. Like, I think this will be a part 1, part 2 type of thing. Okay, so let's just launch right into it, because this has really been on my mind over the past few weeks, but especially the last few days. So one thing that is disturbing to me in a really big way, one thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately is, drumroll please, the psychotic breaks of women in their late 30s and until mid 40s, I would say, is when I've observed this happening, who are self-styling themselves as spiritual gurus, shamans, ascended masters, Jesus incarnate, whatever. People are going to bring about quote-unquote new earth, and who, etc., like this type of thing. And I don't know if there must be something in the water, something in the air lately, but I've had a bunch of these folks enter into my consciousness lately, and I'm just really disturbed by it, and I just wanted to talk a bit about it, right? This phenomenon, unfortunately, that I've seen a lot in the spiritual space, and sometimes these people have a following, or are beginning to amass a following of some sort. And I think TikTok has been way worse than Instagram for like this type of weird, fucked up, like psychotic form of spirituality, which I wouldn't even call it spirituality. I would just call it like schizophrenia, or just, I don't know, like delusions, fill in the blank. To me, it's very distinct from spirituality. But what's so interesting is I've observed these folks talking about this, sharing their experiences as though these are genuine spiritual experiences. And I hope I don't have to explain why this is, to use the favorite buzzword of academics and like grad students, problematic. It's very problematic. And it's disturbing, and it disturbs me because a lot of people don't have that background knowledge and the wherewithal and that spiritual discernment, but also I think discernment in general has just been thrown out the window by an insanely high amount of people these days for some reason. People just don't have the discernment to be able to clock this type of weirdness anymore for whatever reason. And for me, it's really obvious when I see these folks. I was raised in spiritualism. I was raised around people being possessed. I was raised around table tipping. I was raised with mediumship. I've been around people who have been channelers, and I've been around shamanic experiences, and I can do mediumship myself, and blah, blah, blah. And so I've been around that stuff for more than, 25 years now, more or less. And so my bullshit meter for spiritual teachers and spiritual claims is pretty much on fleek, as the kids say. And so I understand that some of that bullshit detector is just not exactly the most widespread in spiritual industry. And I get it. People want to believe. People want to feel less alone in their beliefs. I totally get it. And I guess I'll just start by describing, before I go off into a tangent here, like what it is I'm noticing. As I'm noticing these similarities. And what's really interesting is when I was sick over the holidays, I decided to rewatch this documentary on Netflix called Bad Vegan. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I'll spoil it slightly. So basically what happens, this is relevant, I swear, is this woman who seems to be probably late 30s, early 40s, runs a very successful vegan restaurant in New York City. Unfortunately, I never got the chance to go there. It would have been super cool, 'cause as a vegan myself, I love nice restaurants. But anyway, she basically gets bamboozled by this dude who claims to be this crazy CIA operative guy who is like, I don't even know, it's hard to keep track of, but he's like gonna make her dog immortal. He tells her she's like the divine queen of some other secret realm or something. It's honestly all a little bit convoluted, the fantastical things that this man claims, but she believes him, and she's like, yes, I always agreed I was very special and destined to be like, you know, Jesus incarnate or whatever. I don't think she exactly says it that way. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but she basically said she just believes it, according to the documentary. Like, who knows what exactly is true, but in the documentary, she's like, yeah, like I always thought I was going to be special, so I totally believe that this man was like going to bring me into this secret society of spiritual beings and going to make my dog immortal and blah, 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 and there's bazillions of dollars, and he's a secret, like, CIA operative or something. It was crazy. And of course, it all ended up being bullshit, obviously, and now she's going to jail. And so that's the short version. But it kind of got me thinking, right? Like, why do women of this age, and there is a certain age, I find it so interesting. And obviously cults and high demand groups and like weird psychotic breaks can happen at any different time to different people in different circumstances. But I found it very interesting that she got so taken in and she was fully participating in these delusions. And so I have no opinion on whether or not she's mentally unwell. I don't actually know. But the documentary definitely does lead one to kind of get the impression that something is not completely right with her. I mean, she thinks her dog can become immortal. That's a little bit out there. And so I can compare that to some of the things I've noticed recently in the spiritual community. There was, as I said in a previous episode, someone who had reached out to me, and it was very weird, a series of voice notes inviting to initiate me and heal me into this little community, and then I could heal other people and we can create the new paradigm. And it was very weird, and I did not really pretty much ever talk to this person, like maybe once or twice or 3 times a few years back. I have no bad blood or negative feelings towards this person. I'm concerned, I would say. I'm also like kind of scared. It's like, oh my God, because when people have this break with reality, there's an unpredictability to it, right? Like society kind of operates on us all agreeing there's this consensus on what constitutes reality. And so that's why crazy people often are so scary, or people who are on crazy drugs, because the shape of reality is a little bit different. And I know some of you guys might be like, Sabrina, you're saying crazy people, that's not very nice. And like, okay, relax. Like, I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder when I was, 23, something like that. So I do know what it's like to be crazy. I've been there. I am now healed from that for the most part, thank God. But I've got a lot of compassion for people with mental unwellness. And when I was in the midst of that fully, I was happy to self-identify as a crazy person. And I don't think the word crazy needs to be a stigma word. I think it's just a very literal descriptor. Being crazy can be wonderful. It can be horrible. You can feel like fantastic in your crazy delusions. And then you can also be in the worst depths of hell. Like, having a bad time, right? And so I think that word, since we do use it in both good and bad ways to describe good and bad things, to me it's a perfect descriptor of any kind of mental illness, right? But anyway, like I remember what that kind of like severe mental issue felt like. It felt like shit and it was crazy. And, you know, I have a lot of compassion for people who are going through that. So I just want to throw that out there. But it's very disorienting to see this from a distance as someone who is now well and also spiritual. And to be able to see, wow, this person is really in some kind of like delusional world. And I'm just going to like step away quietly. And that might sound like a really interesting thing to navigate because, yeah, I do believe in mediumship. I do believe that we can talk to spirits. I do believe in energy. I do believe in energy work. I do believe in witchcraft. And the average person on the street might think that makes me delusional. And, you know, if they want to think that, that's totally fine. But in my mind and in my experience, I really do believe that spiritual experience is a drastically different thing from psychosis. And it's a drastically different thing from mental unwellness. Can mental unwellness create this catalyst for some people to tap into skills of mediumship? Absolutely. What's the reason for that? Mental illness often instigates an altered state of consciousness, which other people create by other means, like listening to music, dancing, drum beats. What else? Some people do that through plant medicines. Like there's all these different ways to instigate an altered state of consciousness, right? For me, it tends to just be at will. I can kind of do it. I know that's not going to be the case for everybody, but when someone is mentally unwell, like you do live in that altered state of consciousness most of the time, if not all the time. And so it does make sense that some people would activate some spiritual skills around that. Like I know I definitely did have, I think that facilitated a lot of ease of spiritual skill for me when I was, 10, 13 years old in the traumaverse, basically, and really having a hard time. Of course, I dove into my spirituality. At the same time, I don't believe any of that was psychosis or a psychotic break due to my experience observing people with psychotic breaks. And so I'll break this down a little bit with my second example here. So sometimes, I've had a very diverse life, I guess. Like I've been in a bunch of different communities. I know people from a variety of different spheres. And sometimes every once in a blue moon, someone's name pops into my mind. I'm like, I wonder what this person's up to. And so a little while ago, someone's name popped into my head and I was like, yeah, I wonder what that person's up to. Like I always kind of got a bit of a weird, bad vibe from them. Like I knew them, we were acquaintances, we weren't friends, because I just wasn't a fan. For no real reason, I just felt like they were a little bit contrived. I just felt they were kind of a bit fake. They were good at what they did in terms of their work, their creative output. I respect that. However, it turns out that this person has fully become if I can describe from what I'm observing, it seems like this person has had a full-on psychotic break. And this is a late 30s woman who thinks that the Illuminati are after her, and she's telepathic friends with Elon Musk and all this crazy stuff, and is time traveling and can literally manifest. She calls it manifesting. I don't know what the example I listened to was French fries into pizza or something like that. She's like, yes, this is literally happening before my eyes, and time traveling and speeding up time. And it's very intense. It's very intense. And so I consumed this person's new content. They had not been making content about this previously. And it just came off as absolutely batshit fucking nuts. And this person has amassed a decent following over the past few years of people who see her as a guru, as a teacher of spirituality. And as a spiritual teacher who's been in this space for a long time, who was raised in it, my bullshit detector is like, wee-oo, 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 wee-oo. Because all of what this person is saying, to me, it doesn't sound at all like spirituality. It doesn't sound at all like how I know the spiritual to function. What this person is describing does not really behave by the laws of manifestation, law of attraction, or witchcraft and magic, energy work. It just is not how it works. I know that might sound a bit odd, and I know some of you guys might be like, Sabrina, everyone can believe what they want. And it's like, yeah, that's totally true. But where I start to get concerned is when that person goes from believing whatever they want by themselves in their room to then becoming like a self-proclaimed next coming of Jesus and ascended master and enlightened, and is going to teach everyone else how to become enlightened, while she's talking about running away from the Illuminati and having a battle over her soul. It was like one of the most insane rabbit holes that I fell down in recent memory. I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And obviously, I'm like, I hope this person does not hurt themselves or other people. Like, you know. But what's interesting to me is that this is like a pattern I'm noticing. It's like these late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s women who do get sucked into this, and interestingly, like all along the kind of wellness space, wellness, witchy, spiritual space, people get sucked in to this like weird psychotic delusion fantasy world, and then are teaching other people about it. And what I find concerning about all of this is like, wow, all these people who are probably dealing with some kind of psychotic break or mental illness or emotional difficulty or mental health difficulty, whatever way you want to, label it. I find it really disturbing that now all these people are kind of living in this like shared delusion, and they're helping each other and they're reinforcing their delusions. It's a bit crazy. It's a bit crazy. And I'm not going to share who this person is. I'm not going to share their content. Like, I just really don't have any interest in doing that. But if you guys did see it, it is like, this all caps kind of conspiracy theorist type of stuff. And so it's all very weird. And so I just have been feeling very concerned, first of all, about women in this demographic. Like, what is going on? What is going on? It's concerning. And I was telling one of my friends the other day, as I was talking to her about this, I was like, you know what? As I get older, I do have a lot of compassion for people who just fucking snap and, like, lose it. Because being an adult is stressful as fuck. Like, it really is. It really is. Like, I had mental health issues in my teens and early 20s, and I would say they're resolved now. Like, I have my occasional moment of being triggered by this or that, or like a moment of paranoia or whatever, but I'm pretty much like good. I would say it's like within the realm of what is considered normal, I would say. And it's, life is pretty crazy. Life is gonna life, and I totally get why people go crazy or lose their mind or just kind of snap in middle age. Like, there's a lot of pressure. I totally get it. And I just find it very concerning. It breaks my heart. And I guess I'm also just disturbed as someone who is a teacher in this space. I really wish that there was better discernment in the community, because I'm reading their reviews of all the stuff, and a lot of people are just eating this up. And what is so interesting to me about this conspiracy version of wellness spirituality is that it's very much this like main character syndrome situation, where I think this person who is having their psychotic break, all of these different examples that I'm giving here, these 3 examples, the common thing is wanting to feel like the main character of the universe, wanting to feel chosen by God or by whoever, wanting to feel special and unique, and like you're going to be in this luxurious queen of whatever type of space. And on one hand, I do preach in a way, yeah, be the main character of your own life. Totally. I sell a hat with the word Empress on it. I wear it all the time. It's one of my favorite tarot cards. I love Queen tarot card energy. I think it's so important that we all can cultivate this self-confidence, self-love, especially as women. I think that's so important. A lot of women are suffering from poor self-esteem. And so I do always want to encourage my clients, my students, to love themselves, to think that they're the best ever, But I think there's something different. There's a difference between that, what I'm suggesting, healthy, grounded self-love, that is expansive. There's a difference between that and then thinking you are like being chased by the Illuminati and the next incarnation of Jesus and like all of this crazy stuff that you're like the next prophet or something. Like, you know what I mean? And I find it very scary in a way, that this is becoming more and more common. Like, we are seeing more and more of this happen in the spiritual and wellness space. And unfortunately, it is mostly women who are getting pulled into this, and it's women who are teaching this. And I just find it very unfortunate that that's kind of the state of things, right? And like, it also makes me sad because I think it gives spirituality as a whole a really bad reputation. I really don't want to be associated with that type of thing. I really don't want anyone who, I don't know, is going to confuse that for what I do and what I teach. Is two totally different things. And the reason why I'm talking about this, I think it's so important to just discuss the nuances here, because I think it is common for folks to have this fear-based knee-jerk reaction of like, oh my God, well, I don't know how to discern, so I'm just gonna, jump away from anything spiritual because they're afraid of it, because they think it's evil, because, whatever. And in a past situation, like these people with these paranoid delusions, they might have been thought of as, having demons inside them or some kind of spiritual illness. And in one of these person's content, the one of these people I'm talking about, they're talking about how basically psychosis and mental delusion, it's the same thing as a spiritual initiation. And it's totally the exact same thing. And personally, I disagree with this completely, as someone who has been in like the mental health bad zone, and also someone who has had what I consider to be a very visceral and difficult spirit-based initiation when I was a teenager. And it is really tough. It is really grueling to experience that. But those two things are, I would say, distinct. I do think that schizophrenia exists. I do think that mental illness exists. I do think that paranoid delusions and crazy shit, people thinking stuff that isn't real, I do think that exists. I don't think we can blame all mental illness on spirituality. And I have heard some of these people making this argument of like, oh, that person talking to themselves on the street corner, they're just a shaman. And it's like, well, no. Like, there are mediums, there are shamans, there are people who do spiritual work. Yes, I believe that. And sometimes those spiritual workers have mental illness, but sometimes it's literally just mental illness. And I think that is a really uncomfortable truth that, for whatever reason, isn't talked about enough in the community. And that's why I'm making this episode, is just to talk about this. Like, I think if you are someone who is struggling with paranoid delusions or any of this craziness, do reach out to your health team. Like, do get help, do self-examine, do self-reflect, and just see, okay, what is really going on here? Because you might realize that you get help and you're like, oh yeah, that really wasn't, I'm not the second coming of Jesus. I was just being a bit crazy. And that person can still go on to have genuine spiritual experiences. But I personally feel it's very irresponsible for any spiritual teacher to say that all psychosis and all all of that's just a spiritual initiation. It isn't. They're two totally different things. And I think maybe my next episode will be a list of ways to kind of discern which is which. Maybe that would be helpful for people. I feel like I'm already talking for a really long time, so I'll probably just do that in the next episode. So maybe you guys can let me know if you think that would be helpful, just so I can make it crystal clear when something is a paranoid, crazy conspiracy delusion, and when something is genuine spirituality. And I just think they are two different things. And I'm not even getting into politics. I'm not talking about politics. Like, that's not even what we're talking about, because I do know a lot of these conspiracy people are, like, anti-vaccine, like, global conspiracy, World Economic Forum, like, all that stuff. I'm not going to get into that. I think we can still discern the difference without going down that rabbit hole. Personally, like, I don't believe in that stuff. It's, like, not my thing. At the same time, like, I think it is possible to make this distinction without adding those things to the list, just so we can all know what is going on. So if this is something that you've struggled with through being in the spiritual space, I'd be really curious to know, like, what your experience has been. And maybe you are a woman in your 30s or 40s who has had a psychotic break. I'm also really curious how that went for you, and if you're able to pull yourself out of it. And I just find it really concerning that I don't know if it's just life, it stresses people out so much that their brain just snaps, or if there's some kind of epigenetic, predisposition, and then it gets turned on due to external factors. I'm not sure exactly what the biology of all of this is and why there is this pattern I'm noticing in this particular age range of women. I don't know. But it's something I'm thinking about, and I take a lot of this really seriously, and maybe if I can just make a New Year's resolution for everyone, it's that none of us have psychotic breaks. No one gets pulled into a crazy, weirdo cult guru person saying insane shit, because there are more grounded spiritual teachers out there. Spirituality is not the same thing as psychosis and mental illness, and it's possible to have spirituality without the mental illness. And if you do have mental illness, it's possible to heal that, find assistance, and actually access genuine spirituality. Okay, that's the episode for today, my friends. Much love. You guys know where to find me, SabrinaMScott.com. My Instagram is SabrinaMScott. And I will chat with you guys soon. Take care. Bye.